if you give a dog an unbalanced diet, you will probably not see the signs the day after. The very first mistake is for sure the do-it-yourself approach, weighing the ingredients, omitting the vitamin and mineral supplements. Improvising a homemade diet often leads to major errors. The problem is that if you give a dog an unbalanced diet, you will probably not see the signs the day after. The nutrients that we supplement in our products are defined essential because the body is unable to synthesize them. If these nutrients are not supplied in the diet, the animal will eventually develop a deficiency which may have significant consequences for his health.
Let's talk a little bit now about the missing piece, right? Which is the most forgotten part of home cooking for our cats and dogs. The missing piece is...
Welcome to the DAFY Podcast, the place where you will get expert-led and science-backed advice on dog health and nutrition. No more confusion and no more conflicting opinions. Just clear guidance to help you make informed decisions for your pup. Because when it comes to our dogs, they deserve the very best care. And we, as dog parents, deserve confidence in the choices we make for them. Let's meet an expert.
Today, I am joined by Dr. Rebecca Ricci, a board-certified veterinary nutritionist. She's also a professor at the University of Padua, and she's also the head of the clinical nutrition surveys at the University Veterinary Teaching Hospital. Rebecca spent more than 20 years helping dog and cat owners with nutrition and homemade diets. She also teaches veterinary nutrition and helps train many of the vets who want to develop their knowledge in this area. She's also the founder of VetiKeep, the company behind V-Integra, which is the best range of vitamin and mineral products designed to help dog and cat owners to create safe, complete, and balanced homemade diets for their pets. And if you're in the UK and you're interested in feeding a homemade diet, you'll be pleased to know that V-Integra is now available here too. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the episode. But for now, Rebecca, welcome to the DAFY Podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Gaia. It's a pleasure for me to be here. Thank you for this opportunity.
You're very welcome. I'm very, very excited about our conversation today. So, Rebecca, let's start with this question. Why do you think there is such a growing interest in feeding a homemade diet?
Well, in my experience, I can say that owners in these last 20 years, I've seen that owners have always been very interested in their pets' health in general. And they have become more aware that nutrition plays a role in guarantee health in pets. That's why they're always trying to get more information about feeding, about nutrition in pets. And with internet coming, of course, they try to get a lot of information. And what I can see is that they want the best for their pets, which is very important. When you want to know what's best for your pet, sometimes you may wonder whether there's something that can give you some alternative to the common feeding is, of course, kibbles. They are, of course, commercial diets, which are absolutely practical, absolutely well-balanced, but they're not probably what pets will find in nature and what sometimes unfortunately, they don't like kibbles. And that's why many owners come to our service telling us, my dog doesn't want to eat kibbles. He doesn't like kibbles. So it's good that they come to the veterinarian to ask for more information. I clearly remember that it was 2015 when something actually changed in Italy, because there was a TV program that gave news about what's in kibbles. I remember that I was, sat in front of my television, and as me, many other people, many other pet owners, and we were all curious to know what they were going to say. And actually, I was really, really frustrated by what I could hear, because the way television gave this information was kind of worrying people. People were very worried. I remember the day after, we received a lot of phone calls from owners that were saying, my dog is eating kibbles. Is he going to be ill soon? Or so they were really, really very worried about their pet health. And so we tried to say, hey, don't worry. There's, television sometimes has a different way to communicate news. And so I think that year really put something changed that year, because we realized that many owners started to get more information about pet nutrition. They went to their vets asking for an alternative to kibbles. And what happened was that veterinarians were not ready to give an answer because they were not so well prepared about alternative to feeding pets. And I got diplomated in 2014. So I was, in the right place, in the right time. And at that time, I was working on the integral formulas, because when I was working, I had realized that we had no similar products in our market in Italy. So they were really lacking of these kind of products. And I needed them very much, because I used to formulate homemade dyes, but I did not have the proper vitamin and mineral supplements. So that's why now I think people, from that time on, people became much more attentive to their pet nutrition, but also veterinarians care much more about feeding, about nutrition in dogs and cats, which is good, which is very good.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And exactly what you said about the fact that it's really, really difficult to get hold of a good mineral and vitamin blend that actually really truly balances homemade diet. So we're going to talk about that later. I'm very excited to speak to you about that, because there is so much work that you put into that. And I think in Italy it's very popular, the product, but the UK market still doesn't know about it as much. And so I'm very, very excited to share that with everyone. When we talk about homemade diets, and in general, when dog owners go and home cook their dogs and cats food at home, where are the most common mistakes that you see dog owners and cat owners make when feeding a homemade diet?
Yeah, thank you for this question, which is very important. The very first mistake is for sure the do-it-yourself approach. So improvising a homemade diet often leads to major errors, such as failing to include ingredients that provide essential nutrients, such as vegetable oils rich in linoleic acid, or not weighing the ingredients, omitting the vitamin and mineral supplement. This is another mistake that I can see very often, because they think that the diet containing a variety of ingredients is already complete and balanced. But this is not true, because this is another common, let's say,
misconception.
Yeah, exactly. Because people think that, as I do, I eat many ingredients, so the diet will be well balanced. But this is not true for our dogs and cats that maybe keep eating chicken and rice. And chicken and rice do not contain, for instance, calcium, vitamin D, or vitamin A, and so on. All these things must be kept in consideration, especially if the homemade diet is something that you want to feed your dog for a long time.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And I think you've made a good point about just, some people going from a chicken and rice, and then they switch from chicken and rice to beef and vegetable. They think that just by changing and, adding variety of just whole food ingredients to their dog's diet, I think that is one of the misconceptions that I see all the time on social media. But variety is going to give my dog everything they need if they are fed that variety over time. Is that true? If they change loads of ingredients all the time, and we switch loads of different vegetables and meats and carb sources and things like that, does that give the dog what they need to thrive? And a complete imbalanced diet?
Well, actually, we made some trials also with my students. I usually try to say, use all the ingredients you want. You have no limits, but try not to use the vitamin mineral supplement. And let's see if we are able to make a complete balanced diet. And you actually cannot. You may be using some particular ingredients. You can provide some essential nutrients, but you would lack of some others. Inevitably, you can change, but or sometimes another common misconception is that calcium is the only essential nutrients that lacks a homemade diet. So if I add some calcium on the diet, I'm okay with it. But sometimes once I show the owner, that was a very curious owner, wanted to know more in detail, and I showed him the diet without vitamin and mineral. I showed him my program, my formulation program, and he could actually see the red cells that shows you what the lacking nutrients are. He could actually say, yeah, that's true. There are many nutrients that are lacking. So yeah, the very important message is that all homemade diet must be supervised by a person that is well trained to formulate balanced homemade diets. Please do not do it by yourself, because you may do lots of mistakes, and there are so many things we have to consider when we are formulating a homemade diet for a dog or a cat. We have to consider the age, we have to consider the lifestyle, we have to consider if the dog or cat is castrated or not, if he does the level of activity and the health condition. This is so important. So too many things. It's really a very precise work what we do, and a very customized.
Yeah. And this is why you have a lot of commercial companies that do that as a job, because it is so difficult. And I feel like, as difficult it is, the industry is not very regulated or as regulated, and there is still like a lot of problems there. And I think sometimes what I see when I speak to dog owners is I don't trust dog food companies. Some of them do, and some pets do really, really well, but some others don't. And so they want to take control over what they're feeding their dogs. Your message there is, I think, the most important one. If you decide to take that control, then you're responsible to make sure that that diet, from a formulation perspective, will give your dog, I think it's 35 nutrients in total, in the right quantities, in the right amounts for your dog's life stage, age, nutrient status, health status, and all of these factors are incredibly important. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think one of the questions I wanted to ask as well is, why is it so difficult to balance a homemade diet? I think you kind of explained that there are a lot of nutrients that need to be met. There are a lot of maximum, minimum, and maximum amounts of these nutrients that need to be included in that diet in the right quantities. That's so important. What will happen over time, if a diet is not balanced correctly? So I feed my dog an unbalanced diet for a few years, a few months. What are the consequences of doing that?
Okay, this is a very important question as well. I've always said that the problem is that if you give a dog or a cat an unbalanced diet, you will probably not see the signs the day after. And this sometimes is a problem, because if we could see them, if we could detect a problem right away, we would find a solution very, very rapidly. But this is not the case of an unbalanced diet. So I'll try to answer in a way to be exhaustive enough, because I have to make a premise that the nutrients that we supplement in our products are defined essential because the body is unable to synthesize them, or we supplement also those nutrients that are not present in the ingredients in amounts sufficient to meet the pet physiological requirements. And this means that if these nutrients are not supplied in the diet, the animal will eventually develop a deficiency, which may have significant consequences for his health. Let's make a couple of examples that probably make everything more clear. The first example is calcium. If we don't provide calcium in the diet, and basically if you give meat, rice, vegetables, eggs, cheese in the diet of your dog, you're not giving calcium. So if you're not giving inadequate intake of calcium in the diet of your dog or your cat, particularly during certain life stage, let's think about growth, which is such a delicate, such an important period of their life in which they need calcium to allow bones to grow properly. Well, if we don't give calcium at that time, this can impair normal skeletal development and increase the risk of severe orthopedic disorders. Similarly, another example that comes up to my mind is linoleic acid. I don't know if everybody know what I'm talking about, but linoleic acid is an essential fatty acid. So again, a fatty acid that the body cannot synthesize in a proper quantity. So we have to give linoleic acid in the diet of dogs and cats. And if we don't give them enough linoleic acid by means of some vegetable oils like corn oil, like sunflower oil, well, this may lead to skin and coat abnormalities and compromise the normal function of the skin barrier. So we're really talking about something that are so important. Again, like I said before, we cannot try to improvise. We're really talking about something so important that we cannot think that owners can balance homemade diet on their own. We cannot think to do a homemade diet without having the clear instructions from a person that is skilled enough to do this kind of work.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. And I think actually linoleic acid is probably one of the most common one I see people missing all the time, because there is an assumption that, again, that can come from, the fat of the meat, and, it shouldn't come from a plant-based oil because plant oils are really bad for you. And actually what I see is omega-3 being more prioritized over omega-6 linoleic acid. And so, there is just not enough knowledge around that. And there are so many recipes online that are actually missing this. And it's such an important one to make sure it have, because it cannot be made by the body. So, if the dog doesn't get it through the diet, that is going to start impacting, everything that is happening within the body. And again, like you said, it might not show up for a month, a year, a few years. But then if the dog is not been having that for many, many years, that's when you're going to start seeing problems, and you don't know when, and that's the problem. So yeah, I think that's such an incredibly important point. When do you think a homemade diet is actually generally a good choice for a dog owner or a cat owner?
Well, actually, I believe it is always a good option whenever an owner wishes to prepare food for their pet. I think homemade diet is an excellent alternative to commercial pet food. Of course, we have to think that not all owners are ready to cook, to prepare the meals for their pets. Sometimes I have owners that says, I'm not cooking for myself. Should I cook for my dog? Should I cook for my cat? Well, our answer is usually, well, you can try it and see how it works. Well, but people that comes to us usually they come because they really want to try this new option. In my experience, I must say that also some owners that were not so much prepared to cook for their dog, when they started doing it, then they told us, well, actually, you know what? I thought it was more difficult. It is not that difficult like I thought before starting, because actually I'm well organized now and I can cook for many, many days. I can store in the freezer and do everything quite quickly. Basically, what I can see in our experience, the very first reason why owners ask for a homemade diet is, my dog does not like kibbles. I would like to see my dog eating with, happily his meal. I would like to see my dog cleaning the bowl. So this is something that many times we hear this from the owners. So I think this is a very good choice for all those pets that are quite picky, that they are making their owners getting a little bit crazy with changing kibbles. And so I always say, let's try with homemade diet. It may work. Another option is for dogs which are ill and their appetite is affected, and sometimes they have a nausea, or they're not willing to consume these hard kibbles, and so it works very well with these kind of dogs. Also, another patient that usually eat homemade diets are older pets. So older dogs start having problems with their teeth, with their mouth. They might have some sort of pain in biting, and so these homemade diet is a very nice food because it's soft, it's very humid, contains a lot of water, so it's very can be nicely bitten, and also is very much
more appetizable, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it's more, it makes them more excited to eat compared to other type of food. Let's talk a little bit now about the missing piece, right? Which is kind of like the most forgotten part of home cooking for our cats and dogs that I see, at least. The missing piece is the mineral and the vitamin blend that actually you need to make the homemade diet complete and balanced. And one of the reasons I was so excited when I came across, the DAFY Integra range is because it really solved a huge problem for me that I struggled with for years since I started formulating, really. When I started formulating homemade diets, I found it very, very difficult to find a mineral and vitamin supplement. A lot of them that are called vitamin and minerals, but they're not made for a homemade diet. That would actually help me to create a complete and balanced diet without having to use, 6, 7, 8 different supplements that would take care of the mineral and vitamins the dog needs into that homemade diet. So I was in Italy a few months ago, and I came across the Integra, and I started using it in my formulations. And it was the very first time that I felt that I could create a homemade diet that is properly balanced, but not just balanced. It was practical and sustainable. Why? Because it's one supplement that gives me everything the dog needs in the diet for that specific recipe. So my question to you is, just talk a little bit about the Integra, why, you started formulating it, the background. Give us a little information about the product.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. Actually, when I had the same problems you had when I started doing my job as a nutritionist, I realized that in Italy we did not have any proper vitamin and mineral to balance homemade diets. We had a lot of minerals supplements, or vitamin supplements, or some mineral and vitamin supplements, but they were not properly balanced in their proportion, to balance a homemade diet. So it means that you might find in the market a product that contains some minerals that are very much needed in a homemade diet, but they are not in a quantity enough to be able to balance the homemade diet. So the very first message is, you might find some products which contain minerals and vitamins, but you must have the knowledge to recognize the proper product from the one that doesn't help you in formulating and balancing homemade diets. The second point is that you might say, okay, can I make a mix of these products? Can I take product A and then mix it with product B and then mix it with product C and try to have a homemade diet which is balanced properly? Well, you have to have the instrument to understand if these mix will work or not, which means we nutritionists work with some formulators, of course. So it is very complex. A formulator will help you to understand whether a couple of products mixed together in good proportion might help you in that. But the problem is that at that time, you really needed several products to make something that could go close. Maybe was not perfect, but could go close to have a properly balanced homemade diet. But the owner had to buy several products, which was maybe some in powders, some in capsule, that sometimes is difficult to give to your dogs and especially to cats. So no way. We cannot continue like this. We really need one product which contain everything the dog or a cat needs and must be simple to use, must be easy to get for the owner. Because like I said before, choosing a homemade diet is already more work than using kibbles, as you can easily understand. For the owner is already sort of effort that you do. So why should we complicate further this situation? We should try to make it easier as much as possible. Another very important point is the quality of the product, the formulation of the Integra products. I wanted to have the best product in the market. I really wanted that this product was of very high value, and I think we have this product now because we are really maniacal in looking for the raw materials. Minerals and vitamins are very much cared in their quality. We, for instance, vitamins, especially lipophilic vitamins, so vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, or vitamin K, they are all vitamins that can get oxidized by oxygen, by temperature. If you open the can and if you keep it open, of course, these vitamins can get oxidized very easily. What we try to do, which is something that's not easy to find, we tried a way to preserve these vitamins. So we decided to micro-encapsulate them in order to preserve them for the entire shelf life. It is important that when the dog gets our product, we'll have the quantity of vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E that are meant to get. And really, believe me, they can get oxidized so easily that probably after a couple of months, you might find half of them. So we made a series of shelf life tests that allowed us to realize that this microencapsulation is very well to preserve these vitamins until the end of the shelf life, which is currently 18 months. Another interesting point is that homemade diets are usually used by veterinarians as elimination diets. So for all dogs or cats where you think they might have food allergy, they might go through an elimination diet test, which means that you're giving them one homemade diet which is made of protein and carbohydrate source, which they usually never had before. So you choose very carefully the protein and the carbohydrate source you want to give this dog. And of course, you don't want any other proteins inside that diet. That's why we decided that these products could not contain any animal products. Actually, in our plant, no animal products can get in. Animal products are not allowed to enter our plants. So we get rid of any contamination as well. So these products are very suitable also for dogs and cats, which are allergic or which are going through an elimination diet trial. Another characteristic of the Integra that makes it a high-value product is the choice of minerals that we use in a formulation. We decided to get the best minerals possible, which are minerals that are chelated with amino acids, which are quite expensive, but they are very much digestible. I wanted to make an example. Calcium carbonate is one of the main ingredients in our products, of course, because calcium must be the highest nutrient in the Integra products, of course. You can think that calcium carbonate is equal for everybody, but this is not true. We really had a hard time to find a manufacturer that could provide us the best calcium carbonate in the market, because you have to know that these products might be contaminated naturally. They can contain heavy metals. We chose the products, the ingredients with the lowest amount of heavy metals. So we really, I said before, I had a hard time to find the right manufacturer, because you might have a lot of calcium carbonate. And so we made a lot of analysis to find the best fit the characteristics that we were looking for.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I mean, like the amount of passion and expertise that is behind those products are the reason why myself, and I know other nutritionists here in the UK, vet nutritionists, are using these products. And it's incredible, because it is really difficult nowadays to really trust a company, to really find someone that, that really truly has an expert behind the formulation, and that can put so much care and attention and love and passion behind that formulation to really ensure the dogs and cats are getting the best possible quality of products they can get. There are a lot of shortcuts nowadays, and I think this is one thing that makes Be Integra different from other companies out there. When I started using it with Rusty, I obviously was in Italy. I managed to bring back some Be Integra with me in the UK, because I was at the time formulating for a lot of my clients here in the UK. And the same questions kept coming up. Dog owners were trying it and they were like, when can we get this in the UK? It is on Amazon, but it's really difficult to get and things like that. And I'm really, really excited to say that we have partnered with you guys to bring Be Integra and make Be Integra, the Be Integra range. And that's another thing, right? When I say it's a premium formulation, why is that? Because you have thought about adult dogs. You have thought about puppies. You have thought about senior dogs, dogs with renal problems, hepatic dogs, cats, kittens. And it just goes to show that to have a real balancer, you need to have the product made in a way that is specific to that health issue or that the type of pet that you're formulating it for, because a cat will have different nutritional requirements to a dog. A puppy will have different nutritional requirements to an adult dog. For me, when I saw that with you guys, I was like, this is amazing. And this really shows there is true expertise without this range of products. So I'm really, really excited to say DAFY is now the main distributor for all the Integra products in the UK, which means that finally UK dog owners can access these products much more easily. We have been working really, really hard behind the scene for many months now to make the products available here. And it's just a really, really exciting time. I'm just really, really happy to have had this conversation with you, because I think what doesn't happen many times is the experts behind whether it's food or supplements, and you never see their face and you never really understand why products were formulated in a specific way, why they're so special. So having you here today is just confirm how nice it is to see the face behind the product, to really understand the thinking behind when you created it in the first place. So I just wanted to say thank you so, so much, Rebecca. I really, really loved our chat. You've been incredible. I really, really appreciate your expertise. And yeah, I'm just so, so happy that I have found you guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Gaia, for your words. And thank you for this great opportunity to talk about Be Integra. For us, this is very important to make people aware of what we're doing and the way we're doing, because there's really so much hard work behind these powders. There are not just powders. There's really a lot of work and a lot of knowledge. I'm glad of what we did, and I'm glad of all the feedbacks we received from owners, and I'm really happy and really excited to know that our products are getting into your market.
Yes, likewise. Thank you so, so much. And I'm sure we'll speak again in the future anyway. I love to just have you back on the podcast to share your amazing knowledge about other things as well. So thank you so, so much again. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you on the next episode.
Thank you for watching. If you found this episode helpful, follow us on Instagram. And if you want first access to DAFY, join our waitlist now. The links are in the show notes.